There's that.
All right. Okay. Let's get
Pulling up wonderful
comment
Sarna just so we can.
section set up to where I can see it. Okay. Did it work?
Yeah, I think you're getting.
There we go.
I have mine muted, I think.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. Cool. I just had to make sure I set it up to where I could see the comments for everybody.
Yeah, no,
while we're doing this on StreamYards, it can be a pain in the butt to be switching between. They changed the buttons on the side, so where you could have like your brand management and everything like that, so you can switch from make it easy to switch between comments, private comments, and the brand to where you could put the stuff in the background and your little logos and everything, as well as if you had like little videos you wanted to play, make that a little easier. But at the moment, I'm having issues with Adobe Acrobat Reader because I was going to have the Battletech Universe book open in PDF file. So if we ever wanted to throw something from it up, since we are talking about the different factions and they got all the faction images and stuff like that up in it.
Yeah, I have Sarna up also, so whenever we.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, Sarna's got. I love Sarna, but I've got to the point to where I don't trust Sarna as much as I used to.
No, that's everything anymore. So.
Yeah. It's aggravating that like if you comment on any of the articles that they post up, if it doesn't toe whatever line the person now that is in charge of it wants, they kill it. They won't allow your comments to be up there, though they'll leave comments that make the people they disagree with look bad.
Yeah, actually, everybody was kind of laughing because I posted a calling out Sean on not reading enough lore or novels,
and
they thought I would get banned. Actually, he was like, "Oh, I guess I haven't read that book."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what gets me is the fact that I used to read every novel when they came out. Hi there, Alistair's Queen Emma. I'm glad you're here lurking, and I love you so much, son. We've got some kids in our community that likes to come to our live streams because of the fact that we're open, we're loving, we're caring, we're compassionate here. You know, we talk about the stuff we love, and they like listening in on us talk about these things, and we're there for everybody. And like in the community that I'm a part of, if you're having any issues and you let someone know, we will pray for you and keep you in our thoughts and prayers. So we actually practice what we preach, you know.
Right.
We're here about the things that we love, that we share, that we love. It's a family built on a foundation of the stuff we love in pop culture. Pop culture is what brings us together. Right, left, center, it doesn't matter. This is stuff everybody that cares about, that loves. So I've had my channel here. That's all right. My channel is about sharing the things that we love. Right now, the only thing that's really been posted lately has been role-playing game sessions and a few talks with some game developers. Last time I got to talk about Battletech was with the Collector. So I'm hoping that the people from our servers can show up and we can talk about the factions of Battletech, because there are no real good guys in Battletech.
No, there never has been, and there never will be. It's all more, who do you align your values with the most?
Yep. And even the guys that you would classify as good guys have had times of being bad guys.
Yeah.
but hey, I mean, look at World War II. Even the good guys did some pretty bad shit during World War II. But that's reality. That's life. There's nobody.
The whole black and white thing when a lot of people are just gray.
Yes. Now, some of my favorite factions, if you'll notice the logo in the corner, that's my primary unit, the 6 Lyran Cuirassiers, which is they're stylized as a cavalry unit, which is very unusual for the Lyrans because, well, the Lyran Scout Lance is 4 Atlases going, hello,
Well,
what you
again,
doing over
that's
here?
right. Well, the problem is so many stupid memes before memes even existed.
Yes.
The Lyrans have been basically memed to death since the 80s.
Yes. The Lyrans is like one of my favorites. It's also, I think it's one of the reasons why I really enjoy the Sea Foxes, because in many ways they're the Lyrans of the clans. And
Pretty
it's
much.
and but yeah, I mean,
Even their fighting style is kind of Lyran if you
mhm.
really look at it.
Hit them hard, hit them fast.
Right. They do have a lot of light units, but those light units are used to soften everybody up and find out, and then they just drop the heavy stuff right on top of your head.
Yep. And I mean, Battletech, in the description, I use the good, the bad, and the ugly, because each faction has its good, it has its bad, and oh God, does it have its ugly. I don't know which faction we should start with.
I
But
guess since we started talking about the Lyrans, might as well just continue.
all right, we'll go with them then. Now the Lyrans are, a lot of people say, oh, they're just space Germans. No, 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 no. You don't understand. The Lyrans were formed by 3 groups: the Protectorate Dongil, which was predominantly Irish with a lot of German influences; the Federation of Skye, which had a lot of Scots and Irish influences; and Tamar. The Tamar Pack was founded by, if I remember right, it said Pakistani Americans, the family of Tamar, House Tamar, and it was very agrarian, if I remember right. These 3 came together to create the Lyran Commonwealth, which is hilarious considering the fact there's so many different ethnic groups that make it up. There's South African was also part of, if I remember right, the Tamar Pack. Isn't that where New South Cape Wales or something like that was at?
Yeah.
The Black Pearl was from. But I mean, I'm sorry, BattleTech is my favorite franchise because of the deep, deep lore that it has behind it. It has a fully fleshed out history that is amazingly detailed. There's a lot of people of today who says, well, LGBT isn't included in it. And I'm like, bullshit. There, back in the day, back in the 80s, I remember reading these lore books that would refer to somebody having a same-sex spouse back then. And I'm like, and this is in the 80s.
Right.
Okay, kids. And so this isn't new for us. We've always been open and inclusive. Stop saying we're not.
Right. I think it's the, how do you say it, how old it is now.
Well, nowadays they force it down your throat, and they make it to where it's the center point of everything, when who you sleep with shouldn't matter when it comes to big stompy robots and a big intergalactic war that's spanning hundreds of light years. You know, now if you're writing a story that's a personal story about just a couple of people, fine, you can put it there. That's where it belongs. But when you're talking about these multi-interstellar
Yeah.
political
Yeah.
entities with a war that spans the entirety of known space, that's taking away from the big stompy robots and war crimes happening just right now. And I love how Tex keeps talking about that in his videos. But to me, all war is a crime, and that's coming from a combat vet. You know, we war, it should always be, in reality, your last resort. But we're not talking about reality. We're talking about science fiction, a military science fiction setting with big, stompy robots. Like in the background here, picture, you've got a picture of a Zeus in the background, in the and Orion also in the background. In the foreground, you've got the Thunderbolt and a Griffin. That's a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Actually, there's 2 Ryans in the picture, and I'm trying to figure out what's on the other side.
I think that might not. That's not an Irby.
No, it's too big. It's I almost want to say it's another Griffin.
Yeah, that's possible. But
it's actually, you know what? It's the same image, copied, shrank, and then pushed into the background.
Yeah.
Except the arm is moved in a different direction.
But like
the legs aren't.
This is what Battletech is about, is these mechs going into combat. And the novels, which has moved the universe forward and sometimes backwards with some of the prequel novels that they've put in, to show you where things came about. Now, the Lyrans are your businessmen mostly. They've got the strongest economy in the inner sphere. They're the one place where you could actually buy a brand spanking new mech at a decent price. In the 3025 setting, where Battletech got its start, back when it was still referred to as Battle Droids, before Lucasfilm came in and said, you got to change the name. And they changed it to Battle Mech and Battletech. Because originally the mechs were going to be called Battle Droids, and the game was going to also be called Battle Droids. And Lucasfilm had trademarked and copyrighted the term droid and droids. So they had to change the name. FASA had made arrangements to use images of mecha from various anime in Japan. Thus started a whole chain of events. But we still got this awesome setting of Battletech from it. And the Lyrans, at a time when it was automated, back then they had it listed to where the factories were all automated. And if the technology went bye-bye, they could not produce new mechs. So you had automated factories that was just turning out battle mechs that most people didn't know how to keep running because of the technology degradation and all of this, which is why the Lyrans in early Battletech was such a, to me, amazing faction. It was because they were still producing new mechs on a very, very regular basis in large numbers that could keep a poorly run military in fighting trim. And that's what got me interested in reading about the Lyrans, because I love linguistics, or linguistic. I can't say the flipping word.
Logistics.
That's the word. And but to me, that's always been something fascinating to me, is how you get troops into combat, keep them armed, keep them equipped, get the wounded out, and get replacements in, and then keep them fed and keep them supplied so they can keep fighting. And having a major faction whose only true positive thing about their military was they had that part of their
Excel.
service that
Excel was their lost tech.
yes, excels over everything else. It's like, oh, don't worry, we can put 100 mechs there yesterday. We just don't have the officers that can competently use them and
Nope,
fight
because they
well.
can only read Excel sheets. They can't read a battlefield.
Yes, and so that's that to me is what drew me originally to the Lyrans, and that whenever they finally do get an officer that can actually fight, that officer, he's like, let's go kick some butt, and then they go kick massive butt.
Right.
It's just the fact they have a hard
And
time.
then usually the Lyrans betray that officer because he gets too powerful.
Yes, because the politicians are like, oh heck, he's gonna take over. We got to do something to stab him in the back to keep him from getting too popular with the people. And it's just, to me, it was awesome. That to me just made the Lyrans somebody to look into. And then you had the Free Worlds League, which was the Austro-Hungarian Empire in
And
space.
honestly, in my opinion, is one of the it is Battletech's golden grail if they actually focused on it.
Yes, because much like the fire mandrels of the clans, the Free Worlds League is the inner sphere in miniature in a lot of ways.
I mean, I can think of doing 2 source books off the top of my head. Basically, the dissolution of the Free Worlds League after the War of Comstar Aggression, and reconstitution, which would be basically focusing on the league from, say, 30, 40 on, or even, and to the El Clan era. There's 2 source books right there that would be each 100 pages each.
Mm-hmm.
And
at minimum.
Right.
Because
that could cover,
because the collapse of the Free Worlds League source book, that to me is money sitting on the table because of the fighting that went on. So
yeah, you'd have 2 or 3 major campaigns. Then you could do some like single world battles, and basically cover, say, 30-80 to 30-30, give or take. And
well, look at okay, a lot of people that I've talked to combine the collapse of the Free Worlds League and with the Jihad. And I'm like, that's not doing justice to the collapse of the Free Worlds League, because there was so much stuff going on behind the scenes. Yes, you had the Principality of Regulus that became obsessed with destroying the Word of Blake because of their absolute total fuckery. And I mean,
I think a lot of people also don't realize that it wasn't like it suddenly just shattered. It kind of started out as there was like a split. And then as they didn't have an enemy to fight, there was further splits.
Yes, it's like the old saying, the biggest threat to a Merrick is another Merrick. And that was the Free Worlds League. I mean, each of the different factions had got to a point to where they had become so balkanized, even though Thomas, the Pretender, he proved that what the Free Worlds League needed to unify it and lead it was somebody who wasn't a Merrick, but everybody thought was.
I thought he proved that as long as you made money, nobody cared.
Yeah, that too. But I mean, a lot of the reforms that False Thomas was making was seeing massive improvements amongst the Free Worlds League. And you also saw where it looked as if the fracturization and the balkanization of the Free Worlds League was slowly going away. That you had more people who were, yes, we are the Free Worlds League instead of the Free World League is. It was the Free World League we are, kind of like the way okay, I don't know if you're a
The states
historian.
the states before the Civil War and after.
Yes, because it used to be the United States are, and the United States is. Because before the Civil War, each of the
Each state
states
was more was
sovereign and more
yeah,
stood on its own, and that was the issues with the Free Worlds League had developed. I mean, when the Free Worlds League first was formed, you know, the big families, they liked each other. I mean,
right.
heck, it's like Tex was talking about in his one of his videos about what brought the Free Worlds League was all these guys' geeky, nerdy hobbies brought them together, and they would geek out together, and then they decided, hey, I like hanging out with you. Let's make the Free Worlds League. And to me, that's fandom. That's pop culture. It can bring diverse people together
Together. If
on
you allow it naturally.
exactly, not if you force it, but it has to happen naturally. Yes, Stranger 420, follow the
Yeah.
money in everything. That's one of the reasons why I love BattleTech. It's like the real world, but it's not such like the free world that it will divide the fans unless you have somebody purposely out there working at dividing the fans. Uh, I've talked about this on my channel before and other people's channel. I turned 53 in 9 days. The January the
Okay.
20th is my birthday, and I am going to be celebrating the heck out of it because I'm getting an awesome birthday present. But I got beat up as a kid for being a geek and a nerd. I was smaller than most other kids around me. The only other person that was shorter than me when I was growing up in school was a little girl who had a uh, uh, pituitary gland problem, and she didn't grow taller than 4'11", and we were the shortest kids in our class. And she didn't get beat up, but I did because I was a geek. I love my comic books. I love my action figures. I love talking about Star Trek, Star Wars, cartoons, and things of this nature. I was an artist. I drew all the time, you know, and so I got beat up. And when I say beat up, I'm talking there were times when I was going home with a black eye, and my parents did not like that. My mom always said, "You don't start fights, you finish them." And once a year, I'd end up getting pushed too much, and then I would fight back. And mom and dad would get a phone call from the school saying, "We need you to come in. Your son got into a fight," and I'd get into trouble. And people would leave me alone for a while after that because they're like, "You don't want to fight him because he fights dirty." But that's what I went through. We built safe spaces to where we could share our geeky stuff while getting the bejesus kicked out of us back in the 70s and 80s, guys. And now we've got people who have come into the hobbies that are trying to kick us out of these safe spaces that we built, literally built on our own busted knuckles, bloodied noses, and busted lips. We built these spaces, and anybody who expressed an ounce of interest in what we were enjoying, we welcomed them in with open arms. We didn't care what color your skin was. We didn't care what you had between your legs, what you wish you had between your legs, or what you wished other people had between their legs so you could get jiggy with them. We didn't care about none of it. It was, oh, you're interested in what we like. Come on in. And we shared it because it was something we love. Thank you, stranger, for 420. But yes, that was where we came in on this. And to me, that's my favorite aspect of the Free Worlds League was it came together because you had these geeky guys that just came together and was like, hey, this is cool. tell me more about these little miniatures, or tell me more about these medals that you collected. Oh, wow, you painted the uniforms of these guys on these little miniature. Really awesome, you know? And it it just resonates with me on that. So, what about the Free Worlds League do you enjoy?
Well, I just like the ability for the storytelling. I don't play as much as I should. I
Mhm,
mostly have read the lore since 1994.
mhm.
So
So
I'm
you got
probably
your
one.
start you got
I'm
your
probably
start.
one of the few people who has stayed from like 94 to now. I have almost every single source book.
I used to have every source book that they put out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I had a relationship that broke up, and to punish me, she got rid of all of my gaming stuff.
Oh crap.
I looked into what it would take for me to replace all of those first edition source books that I mean, I had every source book that they had put out, every one of them, including, the elusive Star League source book, the original one.
Yeah.
And that's like $1,000 on eBay right there.
Well, look at some of the down period that when basically Battletech was dead because they were so focused on Shadowrun
Hmm.
from about 2000 to 2013, maybe 14.
Hmm.
Some of those source books are $200-300 because the runs were so small.
Yep.
The
It's
bad thing is some of them are some of the only books that are in POD format on drive through,
hmm
and they're still $200.
Yeah, and they're not that good of not good of scans, especially the art David Dietrich artwork that was in there.
Yeah.
Um, I got to meet David Dietrich in 1990. Yeah, it was in 1990. I got to meet him at the first SciCon I went to in Virginia Beach. I got to meet him and Larry Elmore, and he's the one that got me. David Dietrich's the one that got me to start using to switch over from using colored pencils to using the markers,
Okay.
because he showed me off his Bristol markers while we were talking, and it was awesome. They actually asked me, "Where's your parents at?" I'm like, I was like, actually, I'm in the Navy," and they looked at me funny and said, uh, "No, you're not." And I had to show them my military ID to prove I was who I said I was, and I was as old as I said I was,
Oh Jesus.
because I
But
did.
yeah,
I looked like I was in high school.
yeah, no, unfortunately the Free Worlds League has always been the redhead stepchild of most of the lore,
Yeah.
and I do applaud them for the last 7-8 years of actually writing some really good stuff for the Free
Hmm.
Worlds League. Actually, even longer than that, because some of the first novels came out at the end of the Dark Age run of from 0 to what was it, 30 or whatever. Like,
Hmm.
so I do feel like the last book novel that came out was a big misstep because really nothing happens. You can start on page 1, and the universe is almost exactly the same that's on 315. I think is how many pages were in the book. But
Yeah.
it was just like nothing's happening. Nothing's happening.
Was that the one that they were talking about suckle wool of foxes?
No, no, no. This was um so supposedly there's this it was with Thaddeus Merrick and whoever the son of the current Count of Stewart, but Stewart's currently in the wolf zone.
Yeah.
So basically the Count's kid goes rogue with a unit, hits the planet, finds out there's nobody there, basically.
Hmm.
And then basically Thaddeus is sent in to rein them in. And there's a couple other units that show up. The Sea Foxes or no, not the Sea Foxes. The Clan Protectorate shows up,
Hmm.
saying, "Hey, we don't want to piss off the Free Worlds League, but we don't want to piss off the Wolves because they're the other clan. So we gotta kind of ride the bench. But you know what? Get off the Wolf Clan planet and go back home."
Yeah.
But basically, there's supposedly this dark secret for the Stewart clan that is never revealed or anything even hinted at. It's just, oh, it's an ancient history secret that should be kept away from everybody, and nothing happens with it. It's like,
oh, so they tease you with this really awesome bit of lore, and then you don't get it.
correct.
Yeah, that's one of the things that a lot of the CGL writers are doing nowadays. I read the first few chapters of the new Void Breaker that Bri put out, and I'm like,
I haven't
okay.
read it. I got was it 12 days, 13 days for it to come out. I'll torture myself with it when it comes out. Maybe he'll surprise me, but I doubt it.
Well, I liked the early Fox Patrol stories that was in Shrapnel. They were
Okay.
pretty good, and I liked them. But it's turned into they turned it into for a while as a soap opera, you know, a gay soap opera, and I was like,
I honestly liked Falcon. What was it, Falcon's Gauntlet, or it was the book set before the whole Jade Falcon crash into Terra.
yeah.
It's the one with Archer Pride, which is he's been totally forgotten since then. But it was a decent book in my opinion. I will give that was a fine book for Battletech.
I mean, like I said, when a new Battletech book came out, I bought it as soon as it came out, so I could devour it. It's why I still buy the Shrapnel, and I read through Shrapnel, even though a lot of the stories are not as good as they used to be. And I like the slice of life bits, you know, where they're talking to people from around the inner sphere, including people in the clans. I like that insight into what the everyday person is going through. It's just really cool to me to see what the average person is, especially the people on Terra after the Ill Clan trials, because the majority of people of Terra are looking at the clans like, yeah, whatever, puppy, leave me alone.
I mean, in Trial of Bloodright, that was kind of the thing. The people of Terra don't care. And actually, even if you go back to some of the old Comstar stuff, the people of Terra did not care at all.
They just wanted to be left alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, and to me, that's that they were the capital of the Star League, and they ran the show until they got laid low, and they just after what happened with Amaris, they decided, hey, just leave us alone.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't blame them.
No, I don't either, and I just think it's hilarious. You know, if the clans were smart, they would only have the caste system amongst themselves and not try to force it on anybody else, because that right there is one of the things that would cause, especially on Terra, that would actually cause the people of Terra to sit there and go, oh hell no, and wake up and just start kicking their ever loving asses. Because in the Shrapnel one that I read, this noble woman said that she had to put one of the puppies in their place because they were bitching about people using contractions. And she says, when he lost it, whenever I showed him video of my grandfather and Richard Cameron, the last First Lord, hanging out and talking during the time that they were in college together, and how they were using profanity and contractions and everything else. They didn't like that. And then when he challenged me to combat, he made the mistake of allowing me to choose the weapon. So I used my sword, and I cut his nose off.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the slice of
13.
life, uh, as long as they keep it short.
Yeah.
Because if honestly, if you just, I won't say all of them because I do think In the Shadow of the Dragon was one of the best Battltech books in probably 30 years.
Hmm.
um, which
I've
is
not got to
scary.
read that one yet. So
It's very good. If you want stompy mech action, it is not the book for you.
yeah.
If you want a kind of noir Battletech
Oh
novel,
yes, that was the Shadow of the Dragon was the investigation novel.
yes,
It's on my list of books to read because it looks like that would be pretty good, to have a detective novel in BattleTech.
yeah, that. But I do have to preface that is the second detective novel in Battletech because there was one in the Dark Age line called Blood Avatar, which literally had
Oh,
zero mechs in it.
well, I've not read the Dark Age novels. I
Okay,
will say that because at the time when Dark Age came out, I didn't have the money.
understandable.
I was taking care of my grandparents and living off of $100 a month, so I did not have
Oof.
that kind of money. Um, I refused to touch my grandparents' money, even though they would tell whenever my friends would come to pick me up to take me out to go do stuff, my grandfather would sneak them like $40 and say, "Go take him to the movies and get him something to eat. Just don't let him know that we gave you the money," because that was one of my rules when I put my life on hold to take care of them the last years of their life was, one, I'm not changing diapers. Two,
Right.
I'm not having anything to do with your money. If there's money discussions going on, I need to know beforehand so I can leave the house because I did not want somebody accusing me of trying to steal their money or doing other things that would be associated with changing of diapers, if you know what I mean. Uh, because the relationship I had where all my role playing game stuff disappeared happened right before I decided I had went out to Phoenix to go get counseling for domestic abuse. Uh, my ex, she beat me like a drum, and none of the domestic abuse groups in the North Carolina and South Carolina area wanted a dude at the time to be part of the group therapy.
Yeah, because it was not really thought of as something that
Hmm.
happened.
And the VA out there in Phoenix, Arizona had a group. And so I went out there for just almost a full year to go for counseling. And I surfed people's couches while I was out there for that. So I've been homeless twice in my life, and that was the first time. But I went out there, got my counseling, and it helped me. I came home. My original plan was I was going to move to Phoenix and do flip apartments at a retirement community
Hmm.
because they were offering something like $1,000 a week to do that, and that was some pretty good money. I mean, this was in 2001,
Yeah,
beginning of
$1,000. Yeah, that was good money.
yeah, and but when I came home, and because my granddad and my dad both were carpenters and general contractors, and they had like three of everything. And they said, "Yeah, we can get you set up with all the tools that you'll need." So I came home to get that, and then I overheard everybody talking about looking for grandmom and granddad a retirement community, and the only retirement community that would take them both in was going to separate them, have
Oh,
them on
Jesus.
opposite sides of the complex, and I was
What?
like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "No, Grandmom and granddad had been together for over 50 years at that point." And I was like, "No, ain't happening." So I called my friends in Phoenix and told them what was going on. And my grandfather had been diagnosed with prostate cancer, and they said he only had 3 to 6 months left to live.
Okay.
And I said, "I'm going to stay here and take care of him." And granddad lived for 3 years, and he passed away in 2004.
Okay.
halfway through, and my grandmother, she passed away on my birthday in January of 2005. And but the doctor, she had talked to the doctors, telling them about me, and the doctors refused to allow the official date of death for my grandmother to be my birthday, so they had put her on life support. And yeah, that was her passing. But like I said, I didn't have the money back then for that. I mean, I barely had the money to buy a couple of Clicky Tech mechs, so I could play Clicky Tech with my friends. And a lot of the guys would give me Clicky Techs that they had multiples of, so I would have Clicky Tech mechs to play pickup games at the Warzone gaming shop that I hung out at whenever my buddies would come and pick me up. I suspect some of that, the times that they would buy me booster packs, was they were using money that my grandparents had gave them to do it. But yeah, it's a bittersweet time to remember. And but I didn't get to read those books. Were the Dark Age books really good?
Let's put it this way. The first 6 or 7 were kind of rough. There was a couple things that were okay. But there was a trilogy in the earlies that there was, I think it was a husband wife that wrote them, that they basically were just picked up off, because they had put some money into it. They were actually hiring writers. So they hired some writers, and they just didn't know the universe, because most of the writers in Battletech have always been people who came into it, started doing like fan stuff, and then whoever was in charge would do the once every couple of years, hey, submit us something and we'll see if you're talented enough.
Yeah.
And then these guys, so the first couple of years of the line were pretty rough. About book 8, 9, 10, it actually gets decent, because you got a lot of the old writers coming back. You had Coleman, you had Blaine and Stackpole writing a few books, and then oh god,
in all honesty, Blaine and Stackpole, if they would have the two of them as the main writers of the Battletech novels and have them being in charge of the plot lines, I think they would actually improve the novels a heck of a lot more. Because I mean, both of them had been around writing Battletech since the very beginning.
Unfortunately, if you look in a lot of these, when they actually interview some writers other than Bree, a lot of the writers are saying they actually don't want to have a spine writer. It's like,
wow.
And that, yeah.
that not having a spine rider means that your franchise universe has no rudder.
Pretty much.
It's just gonna go anywhere and everywhere, and you're not gonna have a cohesive plot line to go behind. That was what made the clan invasion so moving, because you had a main plot line that moved things along. And whenever you remove a spine rider, it's like a shotgun going off with buckshot, or better yet, rock salt, because rock salt has such a bigger, wider spread. Now, for writing short stories and novellas, like you see with Shrapnel, yeah, you don't really need a spine rider for that.
Well,
but for the overall story arc, you do.
Right. That's the problem. And let's be honest, because they had the gap between 3067 and the Dark Age, and then the Dark Age was totally ran by something else for the most part up until 37, because that's really where Clicky Tech died.
Mm-hmm.
Then they did a small time jump basically to 3045, and then basically 3045 is when we started getting novels again, and or 3145, sorry.
Yeah, 3145.
And yeah, and then to now, and basically, it's nice that we have writers again, but I also think, like you said, there's a lot of you're at 100 yards and you're using a shotgun.
Mm-hmm. The spread is just way too wide, and you're not
Yeah.
hitting what you're wanting to hit, or actually hitting anything worthwhile. I mean, it's one of the things about like the Free Worlds League, like you were saying, the Free Worlds League has an awesome setup. Uh, did you ever play the role playing game?
I read the books, but that's about it.
All right. Did which edition of the role playing game books have you read? Have you read the classic
2,
Battltech?
3.
Okay, 2 and 3. Well, in 3, if you'll notice in the background, you have fugitive or exile
Yeah,
nobility.
in the life
That
tracks.
Yes, and that to me was the quintessential Free Worlds League background that just made the most sense, because in the background you've got worlds where you've got nobles, especially in the unincorporated worlds of the Free Worlds League. You've got them changing hands amongst the nobility left and right. And my favorite was Anton's Rebellion. And the Anton's Rebellion I thought was pretty interesting, because Anton's Rebellion was, you can see where it came from because of the way Janos was getting paranoid.
Yeah.
And you had Anton. Hold on a second. Don't forget to take her the 2 bottles of booze. That was really good. I mean, Anton's Rebellion had its start all because of Janos allowing one of his best generals to get killed over BS reasons, paranoia reasons. Oh, howdy, Gamby. Let's see. Hold on. Gambit Raven. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, no. And honestly, that book was actually pretty good. The first Brush Wars.
Mm-hmm. And explaining why he went against his own brother. And
what?
So that's messed up, Zachary. My son at 17 got ID'd for a Monster Energy drink in the UK.
Wow.
Yeah. How the mighty have fallen. But I mean, and then finding out why Anton went flipping Looney Tunes was pretty interesting. All right, hold on for a second. I'll be right back. I got to show my nephew where I put his mom's vodka and rum.
Jesus Christ. All right. Oh, yes. So basically, Free Worlds League, yes, it's the untapped potential of the Battltech universe. But for 30 years, it was kind of not touched other than for a couple books. So, yeah, here's where we're at. Oh. Thanks for joining us, but as we wait for American Patriots to get back, who is now back.
Yes. Now, sorry about that. I had to show my nephew where I had put his mom's alcohol that we went and picked up for her today. A bottle of rum and a bottle of tequila.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
hold on a second. I'm gonna even though I don't get paid for this, I'm gonna show something. Yeah. This is good.
Ah,
Can you see that?
yeah.
Can you tell
Hilton
why
Head.
this is my favorite rum, the official drink of Comstar?
Hilton Head Island.
Yeah, that's why it's it's one of the best tasting rums I've ever had.
Or Comstar. So, do we want to go on to the next faction since we're going
Yes.
kind of Capellan Confederation?
Gambit Raven says, I want to use a Battltech RPG as a means to get a few friends into the world and game. This is the place to be for that because I would be more than happy to host one of those type of games if I can find somebody to run it. Because I love the Battletech role playing game. It is so much fun. Yes, I enjoy the big stompy robot tactics tabletop games, but I really enjoy the role playing because the role playing you get to have intrigue, drama, you get a little bit of everything, and it's so much fun. But yes, let's hit the Capellan Confederation, my least favorite faction in Battletech. But there are aspects of the Capellans I really like, namely where you have to earn your citizenship. Though I think the way that they make you earn your citizenship is a little messed up. Because I believe serving your community should be how you get your citizenship, not just serving the state. So what do you think, Fubiel?
Basically kind of the same thing. The Capellians actually have interesting storylines. Especially since they were always the beaten dog in the corner, and then they finally decided to attack anybody who was looking towards them, except they waited until everybody had their backs turned.
Yes.
But it was a target of opportunity. Let's just say that.
Oh yeah. Well, considering the fact at one point hold on a second. There. I mean, at one point, the Capellans, they had the ability to do a whole lot more than what and let's see, what was it that caused them to, the first succession war, whenever they started picking fights with both of their neighbors at the same time.
Well, actually, if I remember right, the first succession wars, they were the ones who were suing for peace.
Yes, they ended up suing for peace because
they were the ones that were like, hey guys, let's not fight. And then suddenly everybody started fighting around them and they got dragged into all the wars.
Wasn't that Barbara Lau?
Yeah.
And
then I think she basically stroked out and somebody else came in and basically that was it.
Yeah, because I know that she felt hurt. If I remember right, her and Davion both felt guilty about stripping Kerensky of his position. But I think the biggest reason why they did that was they're afraid that he would end up declaring himself First Lord, which didn't make no sense because I know they all wanted the position, and that he was the only person who I think at that time could have had the popular support of the everyday person across the inner sphere to get the position. But it still didn't really make as much sense because he didn't want the job.
Well, that's the thing. Usually the person who doesn't want the job is usually the best person for the job.
Exactly. But like I said, there were Camerons that they could have got for the position.
Yeah, there was one Cameron that's in, the family's still going in the Free Worlds League.
That's just one of them, yes. But there were Cameron cadet branches on Terra itself as well. Cameron Windsor, for example, they still run the British Isles. You know, they might not be the kings and queens of the British Isles, but they're the Duke and Duchesses of the British Isles. That because that tie right there would have would have been perfect for the role, but no, they needed the Star League to completely collapse, so they had to come up with a way to do it that was believable,
and then not just have 30 mech divisions just sitting out there doing nothing.
Yeah, and it was like I was saying in the on the servers, if they, I really would, I would buy if they had the right writers write it, a series detailing the Arma Silver War and the fall of the Star League, everything that led up to Operation Exodus, to show the type of person Kerensky was, to show him to be that he was indeed the type of person everybody believed him to be, and also to show just what type of a person Amaris was, and show the ties to how Alric Ward is more of an Armus than he is a Kerensky, to show that contrast. And because
there was that one brief, I don't remember if it was a Battle Corps story or if it was in one of the, I think it might have been Operation Klondike. It's just a short story. It was for one of the future cons who was like a DCMS officer who boarded one of the warships to talk to Kerensky, and they were like, "We couldn't tell you what we were going to do until you were on board, and now we've already jumped, and we're not taking you back."
Yeah,
that that was kind of some weird things with Kerensky. Just he did do a couple things that weren't really nice.
Yeah, but like I said, they're operational security, that I can totally understand that, because I was in the Navy and had to live operational security a lot of times, because we were told not to tell our families where our ship was going.
Right.
And Sansei, that he ended up becoming the Khan of Clan Fire Mandrill. He's one of the reasons why Fire Mandrill was so very fractured in of itself, because him and his Psychon used to get into arguments all the time. Welcome, Alex. I'm glad you could make it.
Hello. Everyone can hear me?
We're about to start about, we're going to be talking about the Capellans in a moment.
Okay.
Because right now we're talking
about to talk about Kerensky.
Yes. That's the problem with that's one of the reasons why I try to get people on my channel to try to help rein in my tangents, because much like Tex, I can go off on tangents pretty easy.
Nice. Well, isn't that the way we all function?
Yes, it's especially when you're talking about something like Battletech that I really love. I mean, I love this setting. It's just so, it's so vast, and it's got so much lore to it that just calls out to me to like, just like real world history calls out to me, says, here, read this history book and get lost in it for a while.
Oh, that's a good way.
And that's the way I've lived my life. People ask me, how do you know so much? And because I like to read. And when you end up disabled and crippled and you spend most of your time at home alone, you watch a lot of documentaries and you read a lot.
Well, I was going to say, unfortunately, we are going back into an illiterate society, so.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, that was the reason why Jerome Blake in the fiction, they were convinced Taramaya to turn Comstar into the religious thing, to where protect knowledge. And I'm like, and all they ended up doing was actually causing people to become what they ended
Sure.
up becoming when they did that.
Yeah. It's
But
it's weird.
Yeah, but let's get back to the Capellans, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Capellans.
Wait, there's good
We've
in the
already
Capellans?
I like the fact that the Capellans, you have to earn your citizenship. I just don't like the way they force them to. It has to be in service of the state instead of the community. I
Okay.
mean, to me, that's the. I also don't like the fact that they can take your kids away if you become. Basically, the Capellans, if you compared it to a real world nation state, it's a combination of the People's Republic of China and North Korea.
Yeah.
But you've also got the multiple cultures that make up the Capellan Confederation. You've got some Scots Irish in there. You've got some Russian,
At one time,
Ukrainians in
Russian.
there.
Yeah, the one
speaking
bunch
of-
of Russians. Look, as I say, for the fact that in the setting that you have billions of Scots and Irish, but you don't have that many Russians, and then I think, hang on, pretty certain the Russians have a much larger population than Scotland and Ireland combined. But
Well,
never mind.
yes.
It's just me.
Well, I think it was the issue was that, like the U.S., most of the Russian, if you look at most of the Russian was basically the U.S. and Russia formed the Terran hegemony. I can't say
Hegemony.
that word. Yeah, and then
Earth and around things, yes.
right, and it was all the other nations that went further out because whoever had the money basically conquered the closest.
Yeah. Because that's where it gets sort of really
Yeah,
well.
and
But
then
then
they
even
ended
then,
up
I'm sat
fighting
there
each
going,
other. That was the part that when during the first succession war, when everybody just went in and just ripped it to pieces. I mean, one of my favorite worlds that got totally messed up was Tierfling, because it was such that the description of it it's one of the most beautiful worlds that existed in the inner sphere, and I always thought that was pretty sweet until all 5 succession houses dropped on it and just trashed the shit out of it.
Sounds like
And,
New Dallas also, because I think every faction decided to raid it too.
I'm trying to think which was the world which basically kept getting. As I say, there's a world I'm sure that was like everybody decided they wanted a piece of it, all because someone said, "Oh, there's lost tech on this world." Or there's a Brian cache here, so everybody just went.
New Dallas was one of them. CAF was
Yeah.
another one,
Might have been
and
CAF.
Was
CAF the one that then got nuked into oblivion?
No, that was New Dallas.
No,
was it New Dallas?
New Dallas. But CAF is the one that had the dinosaurs, if I remember right. Because in the lore, there was one of the hegemony worlds had what they classified as dinosaurs on the planet, and they had to have fences and stuff to keep them out of the places where people lived, and I thought that was so cool. Oh, Gambit Raven is listening to the show with a 9-month-old and a 3-year-old. My boy saw Battletech minis and said he loves them. Get them in young. Get them in young. Yes. Because Battletech is awesome. But like I said, it's the Capellans have some good ideas, but it's like most ideas are pretty good ideas until you put them into practice, and it proves them not to be good ideas. The difference is some people learn from the mistakes of the past and don't keep repeating bad ideas and keep making those same mistakes because they're following the system the right way, and that system just doesn't work.
Well,
and
when it doesn't help that their family line starts developing insanity, so that doesn't help.
Yes, I mean, my issue was with the Lao, was first Sun Tzu, at least he knew it was a persona that he put on. about I am the state. I am divine. You know, he knew it was persona to put on so the lesser people would follow him blindly. But Danshin, I mean, he actually believes it.
Yeah.
And and I can't remember which book it was I was reading that had him and his daughter, sister.
Blood Will Tell.
Yeah, I think that was the one where he's basically saying, "You're my heir."
Yes, Blood Will Tell was that one.
And she was sitting there thinking about the fact that, oh shit, he actually believes he actually is a god. And I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, the Capellans have, you know, to me, the St. Ives Compact was all that was good about the Capellans. But even they weren't good guys because, I mean, Candace Allard Lau, if you read any of the books that led up to the Fourth Succession War, she was a petty bitch.
Oh yeah.
And
but then again, I suppose it was the problem with it was the fact that her sister was worse.
Well,
yes,
it's one of those
Romano
where
was batshit crazy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say Romano was batshit crazy because it's almost one of those things where because the dad, I've generally forgotten the celestial dragon's name now. Yeah, it was Maximilian Lau. He was, because I think when you read the stuff where he's relatively young, he's sane, he's coherent, he worked, and it's literally the
and he was brilliant.
He
was a brilliant military tactician.
Yes,
both on strategic level, tactical level, and linguistic level. He had a brain in him that got him the throne. But he started going crazy.
Wasn't he? And maybe this is like one of those deep lore things. Didn't he suffer neural feedback at some time in one of the battles, and that's when people said he changed?
I'm not sure, but I think that was part of it. I know that Romano, she actually was a test pilot for the early cataphract. In fact, she had the cataphract. If I remember right, she was the one who had the prototype cataphract as her personal mech. Hold on, and I'll check it out.
Because I know there's arguments made that the insanity of the Laos was it's basically a thing they've all suffered from, but it's to a certain degree because again the argument was made that it was Maximilian was a severe example of it. Romano was the worst example of it because she could be lucid and lovely and then a complete psychopath. And even when you read stuff where Sun Tzu is remembering it,
even the
he's
terrified
of his own mother. Because they all have sort of, I want to say the families all have issues to a certain extent, but then it's the levels and everything like that. And again, it was, but I want to say again, because the Capellans are, I suppose the easiest way to put it is from the second succession war onward, basically they are treated in the law as the bad guys de facto. It's very rare you'll actually get anything which puts them into a positive light.
Which is funny because they were they were the original writers for the Ares convention.
Yes. Yeah, it was one of the it was a Lau who wrote that because
it was Barbara.
Got enough. Funny because she basically got enough of this. We're just murdering each other for the sake of murdering. Why? Genociding an entire world. Why?
But if you'll also notice, the first war they went to after getting everybody to sign on to the Ares Convention
was the Victoria
War.
They
broke the They went to war with the Taurians and said, "Oh well, since you didn't sign the Ares Convention, we're not going to use them." And they spent so much of their resources just to take 2 worlds. That to me was like quintessential. Yeah, you got what you deserved.
Yeah, but I must be honest. That's actually something that does happen in the real world. Is people sign the Geneva Convention, masses of nations sign up to the Geneva Convention, and then people look around and go, "Oh, you didn't. How about a genocide for you? Flamethrowers up your face." I'm there going, "There's nothing new there for humans."
Well, or you don't
Hypocrisy.
sign any of the amendments to the Geneva Conventions, because the
Good
U.S.
for-
has not signed any of the amendments. They've only signed the initial document because we didn't want to stop using flamethrowers and landmines.
Well, I'll be honest. I could kind of understand that because they're really useful weapons. Though again,
Yes,
I
they
also
are.
understand the other. But it's like flamethrower want to make a weapon that's absolutely terrifying.
Landmines. What a lot of people don't get landmines. The whole concept with landmines is to make an area to where nobody goes in it. You know.
Yeah, aerial denial.
So I'm a big believer that it. And if we were to get rid of landmines, the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea would become a highway for North Koreans to just say, the hell with it, and just storm into the South. Because, I mean, it's the largest standing military on Earth. And they've got the bodies. But that's real world politics.
Yeah. I was just say all I say on that one is honestly, it's against. I agree they have the bodies and also they have the mentality. And for that's my bit.
Yeah. But like I said, it's one of those things to where you've got the Lao mentality, where there's good and there's bad, and there is big time ugly amongst the Capellans and the Lao. I mean, you've got people who are like dedicated to the Capellan Confederation, and that can be both a good and a bad thing, because a lot of the people that are like in the universe that are Capellans, who are patriots to the Capellan cause, they are, for all intents and purposes, true believers. Pure and simple. They are true believers that are they're that dedicated to House Lao.
Yeah.
They just
it gets even worse as you go along the timeline too.
Yes.
I mean, what Sun Tzu did in the late or in the mid 3050s of revitalizing the Capellan Confederation, not necessarily eliminating, but basically hedging units that could be used against him, and just having them sit aside, like the Highlanders. Basically, the Fourth War, most of it was Hans bought a bunch of units away from the Laios, and the rest of them, and with it went a lot of the Laio, how would you say, veterans, or their actual, a lot of their higher, more experienced units.
Yeah, I think that. I think that's the thing. There's the problem with the current is the CCAF they were willing to die, and that is also a problem because what was it? I'm trying to remember what they called it. The
Chargers.
Not the final battle. No, because it was the mentality. It was rather than go home a failure, they would willingly die on the battlefield.
Oh yes,
and they had
yes.
A proper name for it, and that was the problem with the CCAF.
The hopeless battle syndrome.
The hopeless battle syndrome, because Sun Tzu was trying to get rid of that because he hated that, because it actually caused more problems when they were trying to retake the I know I've forgotten his auntie's
the Chaos March.
No, St. Ives.
And St. Ives.
St. Ives, yeah. Because it caused so many issues, because there was still, he'd managed to get some units to break that mentality, but there were so many who still had that mentality of, oh, it's not going the way it should be going, we're failing, guess I just need to die now.
That's why they relied on like the Big Mac and such like that.
because the Big Mac was, we're not totally dedicated. Well, they were dedicated to the state. They've been doing it. They essentially were a CCAF unit.
Right.
They just didn't act like the rest of them because they had that mercenary thing. And the Highlanders, for a long time, were CCAF as well. But as you said, they were more experienced because their troops tended to live longer. They were willing to withdraw from battle and suffer the wrath because they went, well, we're mercenaries, we can move on. So, and it was that weird thing where it was almost a case of, for a lot of the mercenary units, like the Big Mac, it was, they were too big to fail is the wrong way to put it, but it's kind of a good way, is that if they left, the CCAF would suffer more. So it was a case of the CCAF had to kind of go, we're annoyed with you, but we're not going to do what we would do to one of our own units, but we are going to be annoyed at you. Is my understanding of the way it ran.
Yeah, the Capellans have always had the ability for good storylines.
And if you'll notice, after
go on. He starts and then he finishes.
We lost you for a second.
Yeah.
Hello. Nope, sorry.
Nope.
But yeah, I mean, the Capellans. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Yes, we can hear.
Hello. Okay, good. All right. Well, with the Capellans, I mean, when they incorporated their long-term mercenary units into house units, you saw what ended up happening with them, especially with what they've done with the Big Mac. Especially with what Danson is doing with the Big Mac in some of the latest fiction, where he's basically telling them, "You're lucky I'm letting you live," because wanting to completely take the Big Mac away from him, from the McCarran family, and he turns it over to
the one unit over to Danny.
Yeah, and it's like, what the hell? Completely breaking all their earlier agreements, but that's what happens whenever you're dealing with somebody who's such a narcissist. He actually believes he's a real god.
Honestly, what I think what they're just setting up is basically St. Ives too.
Yeah, that's very possible. I know the professor has talked about the fact that they're going to break up the Capellan Confederation so they can do some more My Guys type content.
Yeah, because I must be honest, I hold my hand up and go, I'm kind of still learning a lot about the Ill Clan era, because for me, everything with Battletech kind of ends round about the Jihad. I'm just like, okay, I'm interested in Jihad, but after that, I'm just like, Republican Sphere, I understand. I do know a little bit, but when it comes to the Ill Clan, for me, it's still, I'm not sure. I'm literally picking up from the professor.
Alex, you're not alone, because nobody knows about the Ill Clan era, because nothing's been talked about the Ill Clan era. We're four books in, and really we have no idea what's going on.
Exactly.
And Callus doesn't either. So that we're all on the same page.
Well,
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
When it comes to the Jihad, I have no problem that the Jihad exists. I just don't like the way they set it up. It really doesn't make sense that the Word of Blake lost their ever-loving poopy because it's falling. The second Star League just falls apart. Now, I would have understood it because I actually came up with my own headcanon with what would cause the Word of Blake to totally lose their shit, and that was post FedCom Civil War. You know, the Lyrians and the Fed Sons could not handle the big lift that they had to do to keep the second Star League going. Then you had Sun Tzu sending his message says, screw you guys, I don't want to be part of this no more, and it all falling apart. Now Manslaughter wants to keep it together. He turns to the periphery states, offers all of them full membership, turns around, offers Wolf in Exile and the Nova Cats full membership, and then turns to because, you know, if it hadn't been for their support, you know, wouldn't have won.
Yeah.
Okay, and then turns to the Word of Blake and says, "You've been doing some really bad shit, boys. We're not going to let you be full voting members yet. I mean, you
Yeah,
just blew up.
you've got to wait.
You got to wait. You just blew up Outreach and took out a whole lot of the Mercenary Review and Bonding Commission.
Well,
You've been
I
bad."
thought that actually happened afterwards.
No, it was that led up to it. That happened before they left to go and do the Whiting conference. If you'll look at the dates, because the ambush on Outreach and the death of Jamie Wolfe happened right before that.
Okay, but nobody knew that Word of Blake was really behind that at the time.
There was a lot of evidence showing that they were
Right,
behind
but
it.
not
Because remember, the Allied Mercenary Command that
had given the
Wolfe
Word of
set
Blake
up,
a black eye.
yes, they had been giving the Word of Blake a lot of black eyes in the trying to contain them in the Chaos March, and the Word of Blake, I don't even think they hid the fact that they're the ones that helped bankroll Wayne Waco's revenge dash, because that's pretty much what that was. That whole mercenary rebellion was just Waco's revenge.
Yeah, he finally got his finger.
Yeah, the big one was the Broadsword Legion turning on the wolves or on the dragoons. But again, I think this is one of those scale of universe. At the time of the Whiting conference, chances are word from Outreach, because communications would have been disrupted, would probably not have reached Thackard by then, because you'd still have the fog of war of what happened.
In my background, they would have extended the Whiting conference so he could get the leaders of the various periphery states to show up to accept the positions on the council.
Okay.
And so on. Plus the fact him sending a message telling House Lout to get their butt there now and offering them a second seat because of House Allard Lau was one of the founding council members. Thus, the Capellans would have had 2 votes on the council. And that right there, for somebody power hungry like Sun Tzu, wait, I'll have 2 votes on the council. I can live with that. He would actually come back for something like that. And that was my mindset for how you would have the second Star League, holding it together for a little bit longer until the Word of Blake going, "Oh, you're going to make us sit in the corner? Screw you." And then they start this whole thing and set it off. And
I think the biggest issue is the one thing nobody looks at is that the 2 previous First Lords, both Sun Tzu and Teddy, both used the Star League for personal gain.
Yes,
they might want to say it's in the safety of the Inner Spear, but let's see. Sun Tzu took in half the Chaos March, the St. Ives Compact, and I think he gained worlds from the Free Worlds League.
It's possible, but I can't remember.
And then Teddy just took the entire Lyran's thumb and was like, we'll use SLDF troops to take it, but then we'll move them out and put DCMS in there, and it's ours now.
Yeah. But like I said, Manslaughter believed in the Star League and wanted to keep it going. And instead of using force, I could see him offering up what he did, also in hopes of trying to keep anybody else from using the second Star League for their personal benefit. But
which they'd already done.
Yeah. Because remember, this Whiting conference, it looked as if the false Thomas, was going to get elected as the First Lord.
Right.
And the Word of Blake felt, because in the lore it said that it was going to be the new turning, because the real Thomas was sitting there going, he had all these prophecies, and he said, it's all coming to about. We're about to become, this big great thing, and then it all falls apart. And instead of having it fall apart the way that it they presented it, my falling apart actually kind of made a little bit more sense of why the Word of Blake would totally lose their bejesus, because hey, all these others was given full voting rights, but we weren't. What the hell? And then
I was going to say, because that does kind of make sense, because the whole idea is that politically they've been frozen out of something that they would want to be a part of, because it's the thing. Again, I've always understood it as the same with Comstar, even though in theory, in clan invasion, Comstar, hence the reason why you have the schism, because you have Comstar becoming more, I was going to say atheistic is wrong, but they become more secular. That's
secular,
it. More
yeah,
secular. Whereas Word of Blake is essentially the techno mage side of it all.
Yeah, they were pure, the pure Blake religion.
Yeah, but then it's with Word of Blake, them not actually getting to them not getting to play would tick them off. Part of me is tempted to say if they wanted to, again, it comes down to that fine line of, is it the Word of Blake want to run the Star League, or they want to be in on the ground floor with the Star League? So it can be the houses running it, but they're the ones who control, I want to say, the power levers, if you want to put it that way.
Because remember,
at the time they had the biggest, or not quite the biggest, public military, but they had a nice size compared to what the Davian and the Steiners look like. Laoyo still was in pretty rough shape, not the greatest, because they just gone through their little, call it a civil war, and Free Worlds League is the only one that hasn't sent anybody to the front lines, and Karida's totally focused on clan space, or the clan.
Because remember, after the invasion, and hell, even after the FedComs broke in half, and they both still had pretty strong militaries, but it was the FedCom Civil War that greatly limited their numbers. And you had the Capellans, who had just got done with the St. Ives conquest, plus all the forces that they had lost while trying to conquer the Chaos March. And you had the losses that the Draconis Combine had suffered. Yeah, the Free Worlds League has had at the cusp of the Jihad the strongest military, the biggest military. I mean, they had warships, and they were producing more warships at a faster pace than anybody else did. Plus the fact the FedCom Civil War cost several warships. They got blown up. So yeah, they had the biggest military, the biggest fleets outside of the clans. I mean, the clans was the only place that had more warships than they did at that point. And
and Comstar.
Yeah, because I was going to say anything between where you have basically the clans and Comstar or Word of Blake is essentially SLDF versus SLDF. It's either the remnant technology or the remnant people and their tech. Because again, it's where the entire clan fleet is basically the old SLDF Navy, or at least a large chunk of it. Yeah, and in some cases not even, but it's still better than anything that the houses had. So yeah, because it's SLDF tech.
Now the Capellans, I looked it up. Yes, Romano's personal ride was the prototype of the Cataphract.
The Cataphract. Okay.
And so yeah, it's very possible that she also suffered from from neurofeedback.
Because honestly, Candace mellowed out once she wasn't able to pilot anymore.
Yes.
Because she was angry at the world.
Also mellowed out because she also mellowed out because of Justin and her kids.
Right, but I'm saying leading up to her meeting Justin, that seemed to be, yes, she was mad at the entire world, but she didn't have something.
She was Max's heir.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why that's why Sun Tzu hated Kai so much, was the fact that Kai had the strongest
he had the better link.
Claim.
He had the better link to claim on the throne. He should have been he would have been the chancellor. But I suppose it's that thing of just quickly on that one, because I say you've got the older sister looking over her shoulder at her younger sister and going, "Are you going to stab me?" And
multiple times.
And not forgetting that Sun Tzu's younger sister was Kali,
Yes,
the goddess of death.
she was so totally insane it wasn't even funny. I mean, dang.
Well, her granddaughter or daughter was even worse.
Yeah, she burned herself alive on the
On the
steps.
Yep.
I was
still,
like, "Damn."
I still think there's a possibility that she survived, but it's like a dark horse. If you read some of the ROTS stuff, there's an agent called Shimmer
Mhm.
who had massive burn scars.
Yeah.
Because
I think I've seen that. Yeah.
She's basically Shimmers are special ops agents, but there is one agent who is considered to be the Shimmer.
Yeah.
Kind of like the whole James Bond thing where it's kind of a name, but yeah, the bounty hunter is that one. So that was always my dark horse pick. Was it actually turned out to be the younger Liao?
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, that's
because
the whole bit. Like I said with the Capellans, you know, their greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. Was that blind loyalty to the state, i.e., to the House Lao. And look at the Capellan Chargers from the Lord. I mean, these guys were some of the most brutal combat people that you ever had. I mean, when they went into battle, it was like all or nothing. There is no retreat. And that was why they never rebuilt the Chargers. That's written in the lore. And I was like, dang, that's pretty, wow, that's pretty badass. I got to give them that. And then we have then the next house is House Davion and the Fed Sons. These guys have some pretty good publicity going for them.
Yeah. I'd say that they're the best fleshed out house because they're the poster boys, so they're going to get all the lore.
Yeah, they're the Space Marine faction if it's 40k.
Correct.
Everybody loves Space Marines, apparently.
And of course, their love of autocannons is like legendary.
Yeah.
But they are the culturally they are British, French, and American.
Yes.
And maybe even toss in some Canadian in there as well.
And don't forget, you've got the Hindu collective that's part.
Yes.
Basically got absorbed by them as well.
Yes. But predominantly, you know, they're more of a melting pot than the Free Worlds League, because the Davions are pretty much a melting pot, while the Free Worlds League still maintains their differences, their balkanization.
Yeah, because you have like the Trinity Worlds and the Free Worlds League, and what was it, the Shiloh?
The Regalians, you got Oriente and the Andorians. So you've got in the Free Worlds League, they really celebrate their regional things. In the Fed Sons, you've still got a little division when it comes to Capellan March and Draconis March, but that's mostly based around who you hate more.
Yes.
Do you hate the Lao more, or do you hate the Karidan more? That's the difference.
Correct.
Well, I was going to say, you could almost say that the Fed Sons is kind of the idea of pre-Civil War U.S., where you were to the state and not to the their states being the each march, because you know the people on the outback side of the were outback people. The people on towards Terra were them, Draconis and Capellan, and then the center was kind of like okay.
Yeah, the Cersus March was more or less that's the reason why when they brought they brought back the Periphery March, that was a pretty good idea. Because the Outback felt like they had been forgotten. And by giving them their own march, it made them feel like, hey, we're part of this again.
Yes.
And then they split that up with the Felt Fit and whatever else out there. And now they've been forgotten about again, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But I mean, I enjoy the Davions because for the most part, they are kind of the good guys, but they do have their issues. I mean, their hatred of Lao and Kurita is pretty well, considering the Kentari's massacre. I can understand why they hate the Draconis Combine so much.
Yeah.
And the fact that they've been fighting with the Capellans for God knows how long.
300 years. Actually, 500 years.
I think they've
Because
been sort of enemies since the beginning, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since Age of War.
I'll say because the Capellans are the original house. They're the first ones to actually be to become a proper nation, if you want to put it that way.
No, that was the Free Worlds League. The Free Worlds League, actually, yes,
Yeah.
the Free Worlds League was the first one to set up. If I remember right, the Capellans were the third, because the second was the Terran hegemony coming out of the ashes of the Terran Alliance.
Yeah.
But the biggest fight between the Capellans and the Fed Sons was over the Chesterton worlds, because that was something that was still a big issue even up until modern times, because you had the Hargreaves family that had ruled the Chesterton commonality in exile, because the capital world of their commonality is part of the Fed Sons, kind of like the whole bit with Andurian with the Free Worlds League. The Capellans had their big beefs with their neighbors was the fact they wanted territory that the other guys got before they ever formed. And that was the Andurian War and the fighting over the Chesterton worlds. One of my favorite units amongst the Fed Sons is the Arcadian Cuirassiers, which was once one of the main units of the Chesterton army. One of my other favorite units was the Tancredi Loyalist, and the third was the Dragon Lords. But yeah, I mean, plus the fact the Federated Sons and the Taurian Concordant do not get along well at all, mainly because of a lot of Fed Sons aggressions and misunderstandings between the Taurians and the Fed Sons. The Malagorta affair was one of those that sparked a whole huge war, and which is one of the reasons why, I mean, heck, the Taurians have a chip on their shoulder because they've dealt with massive fights with both the Capellans and the Fed Sons, and both times nobody was wearing gloves and nobody was playing by any rules. And the whole unification war, when that happened, that was the worst of the fighting, was over the Concordant. I mean, you had some had a very nasty general in charge of the Star League forces that was going after the Taurian Concordant, but we should talk about that when we start talking about the Taurians. Since we are supposed to be talking about the Fed Sons. But it's one of the good things about the Fed Sons was in the New Avalon Institute of Science and their attempts at bringing back a lot of the lost tech, which of course put them at odds with the pre-schism Comstar. And during the Fourth Succession War, Comstar sent a unit of the covert comm guards to attack the new Avalon Institute of Science, all equipped with, if I remember right, it was Loud Death Commandos.
Yep.
Colors and uniforms and equipment and everything else. Everything that would tie back to the Death Commandos to make that
I think
commando
even
attack.
a couple of people were genetically linked to people who were Death Commandos at the time.
Yeah.
So that the wonderful, when they went to do DNA testing, it would say, "Hey, this might be a Death Commando."
Yep. And that book series. If you guys can get your hands on the Warrior trilogy that Stackpole wrote, that detailed the Fourth Succession War, it's really, really good, guys. It even drops the hints about the comm guards, the existence of the comm guards. It shows how Jamie Wolfe was able to sneak. I can't remember how you pronounce Tetashura's. Am I saying that right? Yes, his
Swords.
samurai swords.
Yeah.
So he could throw them at Takashi's feet, which caused Takashi completely lose his ever-loving shit and focus on.
Well, actually, the funnier thing was that the presenter of Comstar actually lost his shit more.
Yes, he's like, how the hell did that get in here? Oh, but I also thought it was hilarious that after Hans, Melissa says, I give you this battalion of brand new mechs to create a unit. And Hans turns and looks at his new wife and says, and for you, my dear, I give you the Capellan Confederation. Which started the Fourth Succession War, and Mad Max is losing his ever-loving shit, screaming everything while stealing the cutlery and the plates and stuffing them in his robes to take home with him, screaming, I'm going to get you for this, you sons of bitches. And, oh, man, that was, I swear to God, if they were to make, if the people at Catalyst Game Labs was smart, they would get a group of animators and animate that whole, have a TV show, animated TV show of Battletech and start it there. Because
that would work.
It would be, I mean,
that might be outside of their rights. Honestly,
that is true. Yeah, it's a weird one because, again, it's odd because a lot of things seem to be going along the direction of, you get to a certain size and go, right, we're going to have a TV show, we're going to make a movie. I mean, Helldivers 2 apparently is now going to get correct me if I'm wrong,
Netflix series or somebody.
Yeah, it's getting something. I'm off the top of my head, I can't remember if it's a film or I think it's a film. They're doing a film. I did find it kind of funny because there was something I saw where they were leaking. We've got a leak of some of the cast members, and I went, I don't care about Helldivers. I don't care who plays in it. Everyone wears a helmet.
Yeah.
Wait.
Go on.
We have had two issues with that lately. I bring to you Mandalorian, where Pablo didn't want to wear the helmet because nobody could see his face. And that's why they had to rewrite half this first season. And then the wonderful that is Master Cheeks.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, the original one, Stallone as Judge Dredd.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because he needed everyone to know that it was him.
Well, Carl
never
Urban
takes off his helmet.
Dredd. Okay, Carl Urban is one of my favorite actors of all time because not only is he a consummate professional as an actor, he's also a geek like us.
Good.
He is a fan of Judge Dredd, and he played Judge Dredd straight as Judge Dredd. While they were filming, And if he was in costume and on set, he wore the helmet. He refused to take it off even between scenes. And there's a story of somebody who could,
But you know what?
between scenes,
Here's what I gotta say
crack
about
a
this,
joke
about the whole helmet thing. When Sly did it, Sly said it at the top of his career.
Yes.
These other guys have no careers at this point.
Yeah.
No one's going to care anyway.
But like I said, Carl Urban, I mean, he stayed in character. He stayed in costume the whole time. And somebody had made a joke on the set, and he just gave them the Judge Dredd stare, and the guy looks at his feet, starts shifting nervously, goes, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have told a joke." You know, but he's a sci-fi geek. You know, he is a sci-fi geek. He loves this geeky stuff. And I mean, when he throws himself into a role, he stays in that role. And that to me was so awesome about Dredd. He played Judge Dredd.
He played Judge Dredd.
Yes, he played it perfectly.
He played Judge Dredd. He actually was Judge Dredd.
And it's one of the reasons why, you know, a lot of us were sitting there hoping that there would be a sequel to it, because he did it right and it was a good story. The acting, I mean, the casting was perfect for that movie. And it just shocked me that they didn't, and it actually made money and it didn't get a sequel.
Well, it didn't make enough money.
Yeah. Well, compared to the stuff that they're putting out now, it made gangbusters.
Yeah. By comparison.
Exactly. But I mean, look at the comic book industry. I mean, there were comic books series that got canceled.
You don't have to tell me.
Low numbers.
The numbers were like 200K for, you know, an average comic book in the 90s was selling 75 to 150,000 copies. The big names were selling 200 to 500,000 copies. And these were not like it is done now, where it was multiple print runs.
Yep.
A lot of these were first and second print runs, not 10 or 15, as some titles we are seeing. I think one of the newest G.I. Joe or Transformers are like on print run number 12 or something like that.
Yeah. But like I said, this is it. If they were smart and they could set it up, but this is the same people I said that if they were smart, they would have kept Blaine Prideaux and Mike Stackpole as their spine writers for the novels. But I will say this about CGL when it came to Blaine was the fact that it was Fanatics and Topps who ordered them to get rid of Blaine. And I think one of the biggest reasons why Blaine is having to take them to court to get his royalties paid like they're supposed to be paying them is the fact that interference coming from Fanatics and Topps more than CGL. Because I've heard some stuff about the way Fanatics and Topps operate.
Well, that whole thing was crooked to begin with, but I won't even get into that.
But we don't have the time.
Yes, we don't.
I was heavily invested, at least a couple $100 into Topps going public.
Mm-hmm.
And how that went down was crooked as hell. I still came out of it basically clear because it was a SPAC, so you're basically guaranteed to get your $10 back. But if you paid for more, I think I bought a couple at 15, so I lost $5 on the shares. But still, I was like, I think I had like 20 or 30 shares of Topps before it was supposed to go public, because I was like, this makes the greatest sense. Day before it, Topps loses the MLB license because Fanatics basically goes in and offers the MLB players shares of the company.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That was the
Well,
deal. It was they basically got the Players Association got 3% of tops, or not tops, of Fanatics.
Mm. What got me? Okay, I have a friend of mine who had invested in Wizards of the Coast back when they were starting to get off their feet. Back when Magic the Gathering, or as I like to refer
Like mid-90s.
Yeah, Money the Addiction. I was actually offered a job doing artwork for that, but I turned it down because I didn't think I was good enough yet.
Ooh.
Big mistake. My friend Poole, he took it up, and within a year, he had made enough money to where him and his wife built a house.
Nice.
And his art studio that he built as part of his house was big enough to hold my mom and dad's house and my grandparents' house. And that was just his art studio part of his house.
Oh, Jesus.
That's some serious space.
Yes. And I was like, damn. And he's like, yeah, you should have got in when you had the chance. And I'm like, I know. And I cried. But I'm not about the money. That was the one saving grace. But damn, as time went on, I'm like, damn, I could have really put some good use to that money. But anyway,
I was going to say Fed Sons. So yes, the good guys of BattleTech ?
Yes.
Basically, the main line of Davian's always presented in a good light. It's the other March Lords that always get negative. So that's basically it. That's
it is, isn't it?
Well, look at
Sandoval's and so on. It's like meh.
And Hastics are just stupid.
Well, right now, what they've done with Julian, I was like, damn, what did you guys do to Julian, man? Damn, come on. Because they put that whole thing of him and Eric being at odds with each other. And I'm like, damn, they went from being really good guys that work together to now hating each other. Damn, that's messed up shit. But
well, it's basically Hanson, who was Morgan's father.
Michael Hesk.
Yeah. It's basically just rehashing old plots that, again.
But I mean,
except this time it's
Sandoval's,
the Crucius and Draconis March instead of, well, the Hastics have still not.
Yeah.
The Hastics have not recovered since Morgan died, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole bit. I mean, for all intents and purposes, Julian is related to the Hesk line. You know,
right.
Yeah.
He might not be a Hesk Davion or a Davion Hesk, but if I remember right, his mom was a member of the Hesk, was raised amongst the Hesks.
Yes.
But I mean, the Sandovals, their hatred for for House Curita and the Draconis Combine is so rooted into not only Kentares, but the fact that for a long time, Robinson was occupied by the Curitans. And so, yeah, they've got a hate on for the Curitans. I mean,
actually, you know what? Julian's mom is never actually mentioned.
Oh, if I remember right,
he was raised by Amanda.
Yeah.
But she was not his mom.
Oh, okay. I thought she was either his mom or his grandmother or an aunt. It was one of those.
Yeah, it looks like it might be like aunt or something, but it literally does not list a family connection, at least on Sarna.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It only lists his dad. It does not list the mother.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's odd.
Yeah, especially for a major character.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I won't say Sarna's the be all and end all for everything, but
no, it's not. But I don't feel like digging through 5 different books to see if I could even find a mention of it real quick.
That's a fair point.
Because I'd have to pull out error report, whatever one was for the later Dark Age, the 3045.
Hang on, I'll see if I've got it on my hard drive somewhere.
Well, like I said, I mean, there's some. the Fed Sons, yeah, for the most part, they're the setting's good guys.
They're
But
the
even
knights.
yeah, but they're they've got their bad and they got their ugly. Caleb was just he was the anomaly of, oh shit, batshit crazy. But the dude had schizophrenia. I'll give it that. But and I love the fact that in the lore, Harrison knew that his son could not be First Lord, and that he was telling Caleb this, that no, you're not my heir. Julian is my heir, because
And they got pushed out of window.
yes, and that to me was pretty cool. Also, I thought it was something else that Harrison was getting jiggy with it with the Snow Raven con. Of course, she was a hot goth chick.
Of course. I mean, yeah, what self-respecting man wouldn't turn around and say, yes?
Especially when she's hot like that. I mean, she was like,
she's a proper hard goth chick as well.
oh yeah. Oh, she was hot.
Well, McKenna uses anything as a weapon, and basically
that's the Snow Ravens for you, because they read Machiavelli's The Prince and said, this guy's an amateur. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Actually, I believe that
they take that.
They just had a recent story with them, and literally they were quoting Machiavelli at the beginning of the chapters.
Yeah, so someone actually understood what he was writing about.
Yeah.
Because to them, Machiavelli is children's stories when it comes to the Snow Ravens. I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
But yes, and then she tries to do the same control Caleb the same way, and she realizes he was batshit crazy and says, "Oh hell no!" Washed her hands of that and said, "Yeah, he's going to be on Palmora. Go ahead, deal with that."
Yeah, but he still clapped.
Yes.
So it's
boy.
So depending on, he probably thought it was a victory.
Yes.
But
I mean, yeah. I mean, oh God, I just can't get over, and that yeah. So anybody who likes to sit there and say, "Oh, the Fed Sons always is able to pull off whatever," they're the heroes. They never have any hardships. Let's see. The Palmora disaster, the Draconis Combine, the Dragon's Tongue that reached all the way to the capital.
The 2 or 3 Davian civil wars.
Yes. The FedCom civil war.
Well, I was going to say, because they weirdly are, because I think it's one of those things where they are portrayed as the good guys. Everything goes their way, but then you look at, and you actually read the history, you suddenly realize very little actually goes their way. They just seem they are just, it's like 11th hour luck. They somehow managed to pull out of the bag,
or somebody in some other line, one of their cadet lines steps up.
Yeah,
does
something.
And that. So yeah, I mean,
actually, the one defeat that nobody really talks about is the entire Jihad era.
Mm-hmm. Because during the Jihad, I mean, the Fed Sons took some massive losses during the Jihad era. Not only did did Word of Blake have almost total control of New Avalon
for 5 years,
blowing
something like that.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, Yvonne and Tancredi Sandoval, they spent the majority of their early years of their marriage in hiding, and so yeah, there's that big deal, and I'm like, you need to realize that in this setting, there are no good guys.
Yeah.
And let's take a look now at the Draconis Combine. Now, the Draconis Combine is predominantly a Japanese culture because the Curetans forced it on them, even though you've got a whole lot of ethnic groups that are there. And ethnic Japanese make up less than, isn't it something like less than a third that are ethnically Japanese?
I wanted to say it was like a tenth.
It's not a big number, but I know that they are. Yeah, it's a very small amount of them.
Because you've got the
Yep, somebody's launching Battltech.
I was going to say it's basically you've got the Muslims, the space Muslims,
and then you've got you had Roshahog, which was the Swedes, and then
there was a heavy Russian presence again towards the Terran corridor.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think. Let me look it up real quick.
I was going to say because the Red Barons essentially are Russian.
Let's see. You've Ricolai was the Red Duke. Yeah.
Yeah, the Red Duke. Sorry, apologies. I put in the wrong rank.
It's all right. But yeah, you've got. You also have a large chunk that was, especially the planet Annapolis, which was American.
Oh, we're forgetting actually a heavy African.
Yes.
Yeah, I was actually going to say because there's a lot of. Hang on, let me just make sure I word this correctly. There are quite a few main characters in stories to do with the Draconis Combine who are basically black samurai.
Mm-hmm. They were
and like legitimately.
Tetchashahura.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I have a hard time pronouncing some names.
No. Usually I just go by his last name. And then
quickly double check.
But yes, because originally his last name was Jackson, and he changed his name to sound more Japanese. And but yeah, I mean, you've had a large African American population that was in the Draconis Combine. You had a large Muslim population, but they kept the Muslim population keeps to themselves as the Ashumi legions. You've got the Vegan legions.
The legions of Vega. That's the. Weren't they the criminals or something like that? They were the failures.
Some of them were, yes. That was the reason why Takashi sent Theodore there to humble him.
Yes, that was it. Yeah.
And to show his displeasure with his heir, which really didn't make sense. But hey, go figure. We're talking about Takashi Kurita. I mean, the dude, he had issues. Boy, did he have some issues. But anywho, they're good, they're bad, and the ugly ties into. The good is that they were able to, force everybody into a single culture. It's not really a melting pot. It was, the Japanese culture above all else.
Yes.
But you did have some sections that were able to retain their regional identity, especially Roshahog and the Asumi Muslims. They kept their identities, though they were subservient to House Kurita. They swore their loyalty to Kurita, though there was still amongst the people of Roshahog, we want to be free. And that still existed, even though the Roshahog regulars were some of their better warriors.
Yes.
Because they didn't play by the same rules that the overly samurai conscious other units were. I mean, if you look, the most successful of their units, they might not have been elite units, but the most successful units were not those that were being led exclusively by their samurai class. Because a lot of times their samurai class would get into that same problem that you had with the Capellans. It's better to die in glory in battle than to retreat in defeat. And that to me, was to me their biggest weakness was that whole concept of they really didn't learn from their mistakes. And I mean, heck, look at what happened when shoot, what was it again? When Russell Hogg was given their freedom.
Oh,
after
the
the Fourth
Ronin
Crusade War.
Rebellion.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. I always thought it was kind of weird that you had such a large contingency of the regulars that decided to go Ronin instead of them sitting there going, "No, we want to stay part of Russell Hogg," because the ones that went Ronin was the ones that wanted to force Russell Hogg into staying part of the Draconis Combine. And in the lore, the IDF, the Internal Defense Force, had the most undercover agents within the Russell Hogg Regulars Command because of all of the attempts by the people of Russell Hogg to go their own way. So, it always described in the lore that to be a soldier assigned to the Russell Hogg Regulars was hell, because you knew somebody was always looking over your shoulder, listening to everything you said, who you associated with, who you knocked boots with. You knew there was a file on you longer than your arm being kept of every little thing you did. And that was a big time stressor for the people assigned there. So I was like stunned that so many went Ronin because they wanted to keep Russell Hogg under the dragon's talon. I just thought that was.
Then again, Stockholm syndrome is a thing, and in theory, it's a case of they could see it as, well, we are DCMS. The DCMS is the mailed fist of the Draconis Combine. These are people who have basically turned their faces from, or they turned their faces from the Draconis Combine. We need to prove our loyalty, but also we need to do our job, which is to stop these traitors.
Yes.
So I can actually get my head around it. I want to say I can understand why they did what they did.
Yeah, but for me, it was the natives of there, that that basically turned their back on their fellow.
The weird thing about the Draconis Combine is everything's handled in-house.
Mm-hmm.
They've had countless civil wars, but it's always handled in-house. You don't hear about them.
They always say, yeah.
But I think that's the other thing.
They had to make sure they saved face.
Which is also a very Japanese thing anyway, is you do not air your problems in public. We talk about it, we deal with it here. If you have to air your grievances, everything has failed because everybody will suffer.
Yeah. Because, you went from House Kurita to the Von Raus, back to House Kurita. Then you've had countless civil wars in between House Kuritas. I mean, we're coming off of one in the official lore where,
they wiped out the Nova Cats because the Nova Cats
supported Theodore's
granddaughter, and like they swore they would do. You're not the one that we swore our allegiance to. We gotta stay with these guys over here.
I got a dumb question. But because at the time he made the proclamation, he only knew about his and Isis's kid, his and Isis's kids. Is anything actually preventing Kitsune from actually being coordinator?
Nothing except the fact that he has Davion blood. Because a good chunk of the Black Dragons, because they were holding him up for that place. And then when they found out that, oh shit, his father was Victor Steiner Davion,
Yeah.
they were like, oh my God, what have we done? And then they committed seppuku.
But again, that's the problem, because it's the Black Dragons were always very much of the mentality of their ideas is their idea of a strong Draconis Combine is a strong curator. So it's the weird thing, how to put it, it's the idea of, it's not the state's fault. We need to make sure we're not at war with the coordinator. The coordinator is our god. He is our master. We work for him. We do everything for him or her. But if they're not if they're not a good curator, then the Combine will suffer. So we must make sure that there is always a good curator. And like you said, the moment you're not a proper curator because you're half Davian, essentially. Screw the Steiners, no one cares about them. It's you're half Davian, our mortal enemies. No.
But it's weird that he's now disappeared from the lore because somebody just showed up on his doorstep.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's one of those things that there's so many good characters that they have that we just don't know what they've done with them.
Katana Tormak.
Yes.
She's literally, we haven't seen her in almost 20 years.
And I'm looking at some of these characters that they could be using and put them out there because they're good characters.
I was just going to say, let's look at they've made this big commitment to not killing off factions. But in the last 10 years, they've killed off 2 factions and have been like, oh, we're not even going to cover it, really.
Oh,
they killed off Comstar and they killed off the Republic of the Spear that, both are very large organizations or factions that cover almost have operations in the entire Inner Spear.
Yeah.
And you would think that, somebody out here in No Man's Land is like, okay, I'm now going to try and rebuild it. And it's like, oh, I'm fired. I'm going home. Going to go find a new job.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense. Especially like with Comstar. Let's go with them. By this point in time, they're a secular organization. Even the Blessed Order was pretty much secular. They were not Word of Blake types.
The
Word of Blake.
They just had a bloodlust.
Well, they had that they used the Blessed Order as their thing because, well, that was what the veterans of the Com Guards called their organization. Like the veterans here in the United States, we've got the American Legion, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Disabled American Veterans. I'm a member of several of those organizations, just so people will know. But they called it the Blessed Order.
Right.
Not because of its ties to the Word of Blake, because
they were all Comstar vets when they joined the ROTS or whoever they joined. It was more a lodge and not a
warrior lodge.
Yeah. It was a fraternal organization.
That's it. Fraternal organization would be the best one.
Now, for me, I can understand them calling it the Blessed Order. I mean, the first division, they renamed it Fox Angels, I think, after Estonius.
Yeah, it was something Fox. It was basically the word of Fox.
And I'm like, I always thought it was kind of messed up when they disbanded the Com Guards after the Word of Blake Jihad. And they kind of, in my opinion, did what the Treaty of Versailles did to Germany and put all of the sins of everybody else on that organization.
Yeah.
Because I think we had this discussion last week, Alex, about the fact that was why World War II came
Oh,
about
well,
was
yeah.
all the sins was forced on the Germans, and it left them in such a bad place.
And it
Well,
allowed a certain individual to monopolize on it.
exactly. And to me, it's excuse me. To me, by doing that, of course, you're going to get people who are going to snap back on it. But what they did to Comstar to me was just so messed up. Though I like the fact that, the Sea Foxes were like, hey, they're going to get rid of the people managing the HBG network. Let's take that place. We see the vacuum. We're going to take that bitch.
Yeah.
That's why I like the Sea Foxes. They're they're probably my favorite to second favorite clan. But Comstar was one of my favorite factions after it became secular, because I loved playing the Com Guards. It was fun to play the Com Guards post Tukiyid, especially if my character was going to be a veteran of Tukiyid, and the way he feels about the clans was always something fun to play with. It's like good warriors, but they're idiots, type mentality. And when they got rid of Comstar, I was like heartbroken. I couldn't believe they did that. I kind of figured that the Republic of the Sphere was going to go the way of the dodo bird.
That was the easy thing that they could do.
Yeah.
And they did in the end anyway.
Right.
Though I kind of, there was a part of me, though, that was expecting them to just have the Ill Clan take over the Republic of the Sphere, and thus they would have the base of the Republic,
right? Well,
to be able to build of, and that
my problem with it is, anybody care if I spoiler something from the recent novel?
Go for it.
Okay. So basically, if you remember back in the Ilkan book and in Wolf or Hour of the Wolf, basically they show up and they escort Levine out.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we need you to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, you're thinking, okay, it's going to be another Republic remnant. He's going to fight some sort of, a guerrilla campaign, maybe not on Terra, but somewhere within the previous Spear.
Yeah.
He shows up in ROTB or ROB. Basically says, I'm done, and pieces out. And literally they write in the book, everybody in the room will never see him again. They poochied him.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
I remember someone mentioning about that in the Discord once, and
it was probably me.
It probably was you,
because I'm the only one who's masochist enough to read current Battltech lore.
Well, there's some of the books that I have been reading. It's just the fact that I've not had anybody to talk to about it with.
But that was basically the entire scene for Joan 11 was they poochied him.
That's messed up. I was actually hoping that they would do something with him.
Nope.
Because
basically Alaric was yep, I'm exiling you from Terra. He's like, all right, I'm going home to see my family. He's like, I'm happy. Peace out.
Bye.
And then the next line is literally everybody in the room is like, we'll never see him again.
That is, to be honest, the fact that they actually wrote that line is very, very weird.
Give me a second. Yeah. I will pull it up and actually copy the word for word what it is.
Because, I mean, if it was up to me, you know, I would use it as something as a teaser for something that happened 100 years later. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
even if you're wanting to do that, have something to do a flashback. I mean, they've
Something.
done that with the Wolverines. I mean, from even after they destroyed the Wolverines, they've dropped hints that the Wolverines survived it, and there's various splinter factions of what survived of the Wolverines out there doing shit.
Yeah, well, it's the argument behind the Minnesota tribe and everything like that, because they're supposed to be the most obvious element of it,
Mm-hmm.
etc., blah blah blah.
And I mean,
Oh, Birthright. Sorry, not Blood Right. Birthright. Keep getting that
Birthright.
confused.
but I was looking at some of the. I mean, CGL needs to get back some of the good writers. Of course, it's going to cost them some money because they've ran off some of the really best writers. And hired.
Yeah, I was gonna say some of the writers from. Well, I wasn't even gonna say that because some of them have died, unfortunately.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Mohan was pretty good. Everybody liked Victor Milan. The one I miss is actually Kevin Killeney, who basically got promoted to doing Star Trek novels for a while.
Promoted.
Well, at the time, you got to really think about it was a promotion because he went from writing Battltech, which at the time was pretty much dead, and CGL was focusing on Shadowrun.
And then he's off to do Star Wars, which was up and coming.
Or
at the
Star
time.
Trek.
Yeah.
Star Trek.
Also Star Trek. Yeah, which again, Bad Robot and everything like that. Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. And Star Trek's something that's always going to be popular to a point.
Yeah. Well, okay. The next faction to me that actually could be good guys is the Free Russian Hog Republic. Because these guys, they just got their start. The only bad thing about them that I really didn't like was how they treated mercenaries, but I understood it because of the fallout from the Ronin Wars.
Yes.
But for the most part, they were proud of the fact, we finally got our freedom. And it's actually in the name of their faction, the Free Russian Hog Republic. And that to me, they became one of my favorite factions. And because I remember when the 20-year update book came out and I got it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is my new faction. And all my buddies were sitting there laughing at me because I was like, they finally got their freedom. Yes.
And then
okay, I found that passage.
And then 3050 comes round and they get bitch slapped.
Yes. My friends made fun of me over that.
Here, this is exactly word for word what it says. Everyone watched the final living Exarch leave, knowing it was the last time they would ever see him.
Was he? Well, I have to ask. This is where I sound like a really dumbass, but was he specifically old in the grand scheme of?
No, he was 60s, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not even like where you've got when they're dealing with one of the was Victor Steiner, was he Davion?
He was 104.
Yeah. And yet he was still pretty vibrant at 104.
Actually, no. Actually, Levin might actually have been older. I didn't realize he was that old. He was born in 82.
Yeah, he was put.
So he was still in 60s.
Yeah, he was still in his 60s. Yeah, he'd still be in his 60s then.
But I mean, with Terran medical care.
Yeah, exactly.
That's barely middle age.
Yeah.
Right. Because didn't Hell pass away at like 120 or something like that?
Well, yeah, he did that without Terran medical care.
I'll say because Hansa had a heart attack, didn't he? He probably would have been still going.
Oh, no, he was 103, actually. I thought he was older.
Well, look, Hans died, I don't think it was just a heart attack that killed Hans at the end of the Blood of Kerensky trilogy, because he was watching that video that was
You reckon
replaying
there was,
over and over again.
you reckon
I
there was
thought,
something in it?
yeah, because when Victor looked at it, it made him feel wrong, and so there's probably something in that video playing over and over again that caused it.
I wouldn't be surprised if, remembering that they had the doppelganger, and I reckon this is where I'm going to say my crazy theory is, they had the doppelganger, so the Lao potentially had an ability to tweak with Hans's brain,
Mm-hmm.
or they had something, so it wouldn't be totally weird for them to be able to go, here is, it's like a keyword or even like a kill thing somewhere in there that if they could basically use to take him out of they could take out the fox with.
Yep.
They
And
needed to.
And I mean, like
I
said,
actually
love
wish
this
they'd
lore.
redo the 20-year jump book, because it needs seriously updated to. It would be nice to see everything. Add in all the clans, all 17 of the clans that exist at the time. Just to give us every other. Right now, there is no book for literally the clan invasion era for force correction, force ideas.
Okay.
Well, they did put out the turning points of the revival trials, but
right,
even that they didn't do a lot of detail work with.
No, it was literally a trinary each for each, maybe 12 of the clans.
Yeah,
it was nothing big. I'm talking, at least.
And you didn't have anything for the Still Adders, really, because the Still Adders
said,
when they
we're going over here because you're being stupid.
Well, the Still Adders, they had actually read all of the Wolf Dragoons.
Or you mean not
reports.
the Steel Adders, the
Star Adders. Star Adders.
Yeah.
Okay, they had read all of the Wolf Dragoons intelligence reports, and they realized, because at the fiction that they got at the beginning of the revival trials was the fact that the Star Adders stood up and said, we should not be bidding. This should be all of us going. And gave a speech about the fact, you've got.
I actually wrote, I think,
because each clan had its own strength.
Yes.
I kind of wrote a alternate thing where it was, I think I was up to like 30,000 words. Basically redoing the entire, between the Second War, actually really skipping over the Fourth War, basically at the wedding, because he saw things going how they were. Wolf was like, okay, where are the clans? The clans are Kerensky. They're coming. Basically, he gets shot by a Comstar agent at that point, but who turns out to be a Wolverine. But, the whole idea right there. But then, the whole clan invasion would be all 17 clans, because since the Wolves have already stopped basically contacting the homeworlds at that time, I'm like, Ulrich is now coming into power because I think he gains his blood name in 3029 or something like that. And then he goes over to the Star Adders. They're like, dude, we need to, the way to save our society would be to everybody go together.
And
to save the most people.
The whole thing that gets me the most, all right, you had the jihad in the inner sphere, and you had the wars of the Reaving that happened in clan space. Now, the wars of the Reaving was batshit crazy.
It was a good book, though.
Yeah. And the companion book they put out were pretty good. That was some lore heavy stuff.
Props to Ben Rome. I wish he was still writing.
It was wow. I mean,
that era, like I said, that era of like 2009 to 2014, there are some great source books, but they had such limited print runs.
Yeah.
That was probably the golden age for Battletech because the source books were all great.
Yes, and they were big. They were very dense. They had a lot of information in them. A lot of the books that's been coming out the past couple of years have been, they look like they're thick, but there's so much wasted space on the pages.
They're not dense.
The problem is, I will say this, having gone through quite a few books and rule books, a lot of modern books are like that, though. There is, I'd say, half of most rule books, for example, for most war games, even now, it's glossy pictures of product and really, really random images thrown in sometimes, which just, you're like that going, why is that there?
It's the Game Workshop model.
Yes.
You want to know why it's there? It's to take up space. The pictures are there to take up as much page space as they can, because they're not putting. I'm sorry, they're not giving as much information.
They don't have to pay the authors per word if you don't have words.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And it's
pretty much
because once you've paid for artwork or a photograph of people's miniatures, you don't have to pay them for each time you use that picture. But every time
you've already paid them.
Exactly. But if you use somebody's words, like let's say you're quoting something from something that they wrote already that's been published, you got to pay them for reusing that as a quote.
That's the whole thing with Blaine Lee Pardo, isn't it, at the moment?
Exactly. I mean, the dude he wrote for Battletech from the very beginning.
Not quite the beginning, but yes, close enough.
Well, he was one of the writers for the early
but he'll even admit, I think he came in like 86, 87.
Yeah, but to me, that's still pretty much the beginning, because they were still getting it up off the ground at the time. And I mean, it frustrates me, because when you've got good writers that love the setting.
Well, I was going to say, the problem right now is they might have some decent writers, but how many of them actually love the setting
or have a full understanding of it? And a lot of the modern crop of writers that they've hired for most franchises either don't know the settings and haven't read any of the lore that go behind it, or they've actually been hired because they don't know anything that came before them.
Nobody's paying for knowledge anymore.
Exactly.
They're paying for a body.
And
you're paying for someone to produce words and then just go, yeah, we can use this, or they can't.
Yep. Well, and that's in everything. That's in sales. That's in, anything to do with retail. You're not paid to be knowledgeable about a product anymore. You're paid to be there to sell the product.
Yeah.
Well,
how you do it doesn't matter.
Well, look at how they keep they cast they're casting the creatives. Oh, these people check all these boxes, and then they'll hire them to do this, not looking at the fact, can they actually write?
Yes.
Can they give us our product? Are they competent?
Well, it's like I made a big post on Twitter back in August or September. I did a lot of research, and I compared how CGL promoted one book versus another book.
Mm-hmm.
One book is, in my opinion, the best Battletech novel that's been released in 20 plus years, and the other one was meh. But the book that was meh got, I want to say, 20 to 30 posts on all of the social media that I cared to look at, which was X, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Yeah.
And the other book, which was great, in my opinion, got, I think, a total of 7 posts. That's crazy.
Wow. But it's modern marketing.
Yeah, it's like I said.
And that's not including Reddit AMAs that I didn't even care to count.
to me, I've been looking at a lot of this stuff because I purposely think this has all been done purposefully, because if it was incompetence, somebody would be making mistakes that ends up making something really kick ass.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, you're going to get that. You're
because
going to get a chance and chance. Eventually, they will hit on gold.
exactly.
I
Now,
mean,
I've
they've
talked to
have
people who've watched Skeleton Crew, and they said Skeleton Crew is actually pretty good. So once it's all dropped, I'm going to I'll binge watch it and see for myself, because I tried watching Alkalite and I couldn't get into it. None of it made sense to me. And I like watching stuff and making up my own mind about it. That's just the way I've always been. It was something that my mom and dad and my grandparents always taught me, was do your own research. Y'all, I don't think y'all are old enough to remember the Great Satanic Panic from
Oh,
the
no, no.
80s.
I
somewhat.
remember that.
Well, I was living in the mountains of North Carolina in this place called Bills Creek, little tiny spot. Well, the Baptist church there almost got kicked out of the Southern Baptist Association for being a cult. Not quite Westboro Baptist Church cult, but still, it was starting to turn into that. These people, they wanted the preacher to stand up there and wave around a dog-eared ancient copy of the King James Version of the Bible and go, if you don't believe what I tell you, this here book tells you to believe, you're going to burn in hell and damnations. That was the type of church it was. And they had somebody that showed up to talk about how Dungeons and Dragons was worshiping Satan. And I was in school at the time. One of my classmates would bring his Dungeons and Dragons books and share them with me. And we would sit and read, because we both were artists. We both liked to draw, and we both liked Lord of the Rings and high fantasy. So we would be talking about this stuff. And even though he wasn't allowed to bring his dice to school.
Ooh.
If he had been allowed to bring his dice to school, we probably would have been playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was in like the 7th and 8th grade. Okay.
Okay, I just
But
posted
instead,
my data that I collected for the post on
sweet.
Twitter. So yeah,
But like I said, they had this guy that was sitting there telling us that it was worshiping Satan and black magic and all this other stuff. And I'm sitting beside my mom in the audience saying, Mom, that's not true. And she's like, shh, be quiet. I'm like, Mom, I've read the book. That's not in the book. And this guy points at me and says, did he say he's read the Satan book? See, it's reached all the way here to you now. And tried to make me an example of a pure, innocent mind that has been corrupted by Satan. And I'm like, but that's not in any of the books that you're talking about. Because he was holding up some of these books and saying, this book does this book says that. And I'm like, I've read that book, it's not in there. I read that book, that's not in there. And on the ride home, they were giving me heck over it. And I said, Mom, Dad, aren't you the ones that keep telling me I need to read something for myself before I take somebody else's word for what's in it? And my mom and dad were like, holy shit, he's right. And the next day, my dad, I think it was my dad, while I was at school, drove all the way from Bills Creek, which was in Rutherford County, in Lake Lure, where the big tropical storm Helene caused all the troubles.
Mm-hmm.
Drove from there to Asheville to a bookstore up there to buy the box set of Dungeons and Dragons and brought it home.
Nice.
And then they got it home, opened it up, spread everything out on the kitchen table, and then they started reading it. And when they got done, they looked at me and says, we're sorry. You're right. None of what they said is in these books. And I was like, now what do we do? And they went to the phone, picked up the phone, called our preacher, Bruce Bradley, and said, Bruce, get over here. We just got done reading all these books, and none of what that guy told us is in these books. So the preacher came to the house, looked at it, and they gathered all the books up and handed it to him, says, now you read it. And he says, okay. He took it home, he read it, and he was so upset that we had been lied to in church by somebody, this traveling preacher who was pushing this stuff. And so that Sunday, we ended up getting a big sermon about bearing false witness. And he was talking about all that. And when he returned the box of Dungeons and Dragons stuff to my mom and dad, my mom turns and looks at me and says, here, boom, and gave them to me. That was how I got my first Dungeons and Dragons set.
Nice.
Was because I stood up to that stuff in church, and mom and dad were so impressed by the fact that I lived up to what they taught me to do, read it for myself, and convince them to read it for themselves. But within a year, that church ran Pastor Bradley out of the community and brought in somebody that would preach the way they wanted it to be preached. And that dude almost caused that church to be kicked out of the Southern Baptist Association for being a cult.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes. So yeah, that was that was my childhood has been and the life I've lived has not been easy. It's had its ups, it's had its downs, it's had its sides to sides, but it's my life, and I've accepted it, and it's what shaped me into the person I am today. And I've not let it corrupt me and turn me into a bastard. It's like I said when you guys first got here. I want this channel to be about sharing the things we love. We built safe spaces when I was a kid while getting the bejesus kicked out of me for liking geeky stuff. And I accepted anybody who expressed interest in the geeky stuff. Yes, I got stabbed in the back and betrayed for it, but I was being true to myself, because I believe that if you love something, by sharing it with others, you're sharing that love with others, and it makes the world a much better place in the long run. So I was talked into creating the American Patriots Pad channel, to where I can have people like y'all on to talk about stuff that we love, so people can hear how much we love it and want to share it with other people. Because I'm sick and tired of people like Bri and these other people who keep saying, oh, you're just filled full of hate, when we're trying to defend something that we've loved for, in some cases, since the very beginning. I mean, 4 to 5 decades of loving something. You don't want to just let it go. And you hate seeing it being taken down a road that's divisive and is trying to force out the people who kept it alive when nobody cared about it. Battletech, when Fawcett died, there was nobody keeping Battletech alive except for us fans. Star Trek, after the original series got canceled, what kept Star Trek alive for a long period of time? The fans. Okay.
And it was cheap to it was cheap to put into syndication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a cartoon.
Yeah, the cartoons was so awesome. Even the toy line that came out of the cartoons, that was so cool. In fact, I'm looking at a shelf full of all of the Mego Star Trek figures that I've been able to get so far. I'm missing Sulu and Uhura, the Gorn, and the Romulan. Those are and the Orion. Those are the only ones I'm missing right now. But that's not Battletech. Let's get back to Battletech.
Anyway, back to Battletech.
All right, I
think we've covered all the major factions.
Yeah,
except for the periphery states. We haven't hit them yet.
Yeah.
If you guys want to do this again next Saturday, we can do next Saturday and hit the periphery states, because the periphery states have got some pretty cool factions there.
And it depends on how far you want to go out into periphery also.
Yeah.
Yes, true. Because I mean, if we didn't even touch on the clans today.
Yeah,
And
the
that's
clans
deep
needs to be
periphery.
its own episode.
That is very true. The clans
Yes.
do, because it's
It's
And
it's
20
gonna
different
be-
factions.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's and it'd be more than a 3-hour talk for
Yeah.
the clans. And literally, we would have to start really early next Saturday to be able to cover the whole clans, and go a little bit later than the 3 o'clock that we're set up for today. But getting to talk with you guys has been awesome. Is there anything that y'all do here on YouTube that you'd like to advertise?
The shilling moment.
Yes.
I mean, well, I've got my Wargaming YouTube, which is down the thing, D Reeves Gaming. I do mostly historical on there. A
Do you
little
have
bit
your
light
link
on.
to your channel so I can post it?
How do you want me to? I do have somewhere. One second.
Send it to me on Discord right quick.
Okay, will do.
Yeah.
1 second. Yeah, it's a little bit light on content
Or you can
recently.
send it in the private chat if you want. Either or.
Yeah, I'll drop it in the private chat. Hang on. So he goes, where with it? Can't find it. Oh, I hate these
All
things so much. Hang on.
Yeah.
It's playing with
Well,
me.
they changed
No,
things
stop
around
it.
here on StreamYards on the.
I'll
But like I
find
said,
it.
it's. All right. What about you, Fooble?
I'm
While
here
he's
on
looking for his
YouTube.
link.
I'm here on. I'm basically, you know what? Give me a second. I think I have a link that'll do everything easier. Bear with me.
Yes. Share links, man, because a rising tide lifts all boats, and by us being right now, I'm still establishing my own little circle, but the community I'm a part of, we consider ourselves a family because we come out to help each other when somebody's in need. And
I don't post enough, so here's the link. It goes to like a page that has all my links on it.
Sweet. But like I said,
when I set that up so many years ago when I was actually streaming on Twitch and YouTube, and I just crap, my freaking let me find
That
where
thing should be me.
Oh,
all right.
That's what's going on. What is my most of the time I'm probably going to have stuff on Instagram.
Sweet.
Come on.
Well, like I said, we're sharing what we love here, guys. And by doing that, I'm hoping that we can prove we are not what people have been lying about us all this time. That allow our own words either rise us up or sink us. That's why I'm a
I need to
free
update
speech
that.
absolutist.
That's very true.
Because to me, that's the whole thing about freedom of speech. By us being ourselves and by being able to speak our minds, people can see us for who we are. Yes, we can be some of the nicest, kindest people you'll ever meet who are flawed. Because guess what? Every human being is flawed. Nobody's perfect. Nobody is perfect. Well, there was one person who was perfect, but he ended up being put on a cross, but that's beside the point. But I look at life in a very simple, easy way. We are here to live a life.
Wrong email address.
To be good.
Right? Maybe?
Yeah, go for it.
No. I'm sorry. I'm
if
trying
you
to
want.
see something.
But like I said, we're here to share the things that we love with everybody. We're here to have, but most importantly, we're here to have fun and make friends and family. So stick around for a little bit. we'll be doing our Star Wars Living Force campaign session in about 10 minutes. That gives me enough time to make a bathroom run and maybe grab something to eat before we get it started. If you guys want to hang out and watch, you're more than welcome. Because I like I said, Saturdays I run a Star Wars role-playing game session here on YouTube for my nephew, my son, and some friends of mine that we made here online in the community. I'd love, I think it was it Gambit Raven who said he wanted to do the Battletech role-playing game
Yes.
on here?
Yes.
Or no, it was, and I think Stranger 4 might have said something about it. Well, if you guys really want a Battletech role-playing game campaign to do, let me know. Contact me personally. Hold on, and I'll post the link to my channel's Discord. That way you can join up there and we can talk about it. Because if I can't get people to play a Battletech game RPG, I'm more than willing to host it here, because I'd love to play it instead of running it, because right now I'm the only GM that's been on my channel. I've run the Star Wars game, and I've also run a pickup game of the Wild Weird West, which is a mishmash of steampunk, Deadlands, and a couple of other
I was going to say, I used to
fantasy.
GM Deadlands.
Deadlands, I got to play Deadlands when it first came out, when it was the Savage Worlds, before Savage Worlds ever came about, and had to play poker for everything we ever did. That's how long I played Deadlands, and I loved it. It was fun. I missed the guys I used to get to play the game with. So yeah, that's got a soft spot in my heart, just like BattleTech does. A lot of these older games, I love playing them. I'm looking for somebody who would run a superheroes role-playing game, because I want to play superheroes again. After all, if you'll notice, my main avatar is my superhero alter ego of the American Patriot. That should be the biggest, easiest way of realizing I'm a comic book geek, and my favorite superhero is Captain America. But we better go ahead and wrap it up. So thank you guys for being here today. Everybody that came for the stream, thank you guys for showing up, and know that I love each and every one of you. And share the things you love in life with others, because this world needs a whole lot more love. And I think by sharing what we love, we make the world a better place. God bless, and I'll talk to y'all later.